Hey guys, so Zeke and I are kind of stuck in the house. We haven't seen each other, and we're kind of trying to come up with new ways to keep the show going. And we didn't think we were going to do this. We like doing in-person interviews, but hey, that's the time we live in right now. So a couple nights ago, we got together with our friends Brett and Luke, and we did a late night video chat after the kids went to bed, and we recorded it. Hope you enjoy. And before we get into that, want to let you know this show and every show is sponsored by CaskCartel.com, changing the industry standard in how you get your alcohol. And right now, that's kind of pretty convenient because they ship liquor directly to your door. Whatever you need, they have it. They are an online liquor store. It is a convenience play. You might see some stuff on there that's pretty expensive, and that might not be what you need right now. You might need the stuff that you just can't go to the store and get. They will ship it directly to you, whether it's whiskey, bourbon, vodka, gin, rum. Go to CaskCartel.com, check it out. Follow them on Instagram. They are always doing good giveaways to their followers. They are Cask Cartel on Instagram. They just gave away a bunch of Blanton's Gold to everybody. Always a good time. They're pretty interactive. Check them out, CaskCartel.com and Cask Cartel on Instagram. This show is also sponsored by the good people at DistilleryProducts.com. Janie, Vicky, Carson, all the folks over there. If I haven't met you yet, I am sorry, but they are the source to go to. If you go to any distillery, once you can go to distilleries again and you say, hey, where do you get your Glens? Where do you get your laser etch products? They're pretty much going to tell you DistilleryProducts.com. They have great wholesale pricing for laser etch glassware, Glencairns, wheat Glencairns, a rocks glass, a dram glass, a tipsy rocks glass, decanters, flasks, whatever it is, distilleryproducts.com has it, and they have it at great prices. So check them out at distilleryproducts.com, and now enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. My name is John Edwards, and with me is Zeke Baker, and together we make the Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, thank you for making us a part of your day. Hi, Zeke.
What's up there, big cat?
This is a little different for us. We don't normally talk this way. You're on a video screen. I can see you. You're not in the room with me. This is not a way that we wanted to record ever. In this day and age, this is kind of the way we got to do it, right?
The whole, what's the movie we were talking about the other day? Wesley Snipes.
Demolition Man. The three seashells.
Exactly. Everything's virtual reality now.
And speaking of virtual reality, we're able to have awesome guests with us on virtual reality as well. Two of our favorite people we're good friends with. We love talking to them, and we figured if we're going to be in this whole social distancing thing, these are two guys we want to be in the bunker with, Brett Atlas and Luke Castle. Thank you both for joining.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
There's Zeke's phone. Do you guys hear, Zeke obviously brought his MacBook because his iPhone 2 could not handle video conferencing.
That is sweet.
And do you know how loud his phone vibrates? Like, you heard it. Nobody else's phone vibrates that loud.
Hey, man, they don't make them like they used to.
Zeke talks about his phone like people talk about houses. Like, the fire rating for my house that was built in 1950 is a lot better than the one of yours that was built in 2020.
I talk about my phone like I talk about me.
What about you?
Don't make them like they used to.
How are you guys doing? What have you both been up to? I mean, both of you have day jobs where you travel a lot. How's it actually being home?
I spend a lot of time on Zoom now, which is that's a new normal for sure. I'm on Zoom calls multiple times a day now. And traveling, we used to travel a lot. Haven't traveled at all this month, so it's different. I'm getting a lot of family time in.
Yeah, same. We're using a ton of WebEx. We use some Microsoft Teams occasionally. I'll put a plug in for my wife's company. And, travel's pretty much toast at this point. A lot of calls throughout the day, just trying to cope with it and make do. Get a lot of time with the family. At least 3 times a day, I have to do the silent whisper to my kids that are open the door and want to show me the drawing they just did or the puzzle they completed. So trying to do the double thumbs up, nice work without interrupting the call. And I think I'm doing okay at it. Nobody's busted me publicly yet anyway.
Well, I think everybody is being very, very, very understanding because my daughter comes in and I'll be on a call. The funny thing is we're all doing WebEx, but they say don't do video conferencing. My daughter will come in and she'll be like, Daddy, I just have to tell you something. Let me tell you something real quick. Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. And then I have to quickly go on mute.
Everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
People scurrying in and out of the screen too. There's no avoiding it.
At least, Castle, your kids can show you completed projects and not get where do these pieces go? What do I do now? I need help. John and I are both hand-tied.
No, they don't understand the personal boundaries. Mine are 6 and 8. They're pretty good. They can entertain themselves. We put together a schedule that I think we follow at least 20 or 25% of throughout the day. We try and, just a matter of, trying to keep them occupied. I have a buddy that does some sports radio, and he describes his job as a segment killer. He's got a 2-hour show. He's got these 15-minute segments throughout that 2 hours that he's got to talk between commercials. That's what parenting from home is like when you're working full time and doing these other activities at the same time.
I still get to run into the office because there's nobody there, so I get the place all to myself.
I'm SOL, pharmacy and closing. Like no way, no how. Like I'm gonna put on like a card. Text me your questions. I'll reply. Just stay back. Thanks.
Let's actually talk about bourbon because it's great having both of you on. I mean, anybody who knows you guys are super involved from writing in bourbon to being in the Crusaders and all the money that you raise for different charities, being active in different bourbon groups. What got you guys into bourbon in the first place? We'll start with Brett and then go to Luke.
Long time ago, I let's say Hell Week, my freshman year in college, 30 pledges. They bring us up one by one. I was A, so I was one of the first. They wheel out a tray of shots. In this case, it was 91 Wild Turkey 8101. Take 6 shots. Everybody gets sick. A couple guys wound up in the hospital. So I didn't touch it for forever after that. That, by the way, was bottom shelf swill back then. So fast forward to I got out of college. I went to law school. I started drinking Maker's Mark and Woodford and Basil Hayden and that just trying some different things and kind of got into it. And then I read about Pappy Van Winkle and I think it was GQ magazine or something like that. And I asked the liquor store, can you get me a bottle of this? I'd love to try what a premium bourbon tastes like. And I think that was back in 2009. And was able to get a bottle of that squat bottle, Old Rip was what I wound up with. And then I think that was the last time I saw it on the shelf. So after that, just went to a bunch of tastings, really got into it. And then a friend of mine from college, Brent Joseph, told me about Bourbon and Banter and said, if you want to write for him, you can apply. So I entered that and, wrote a few articles there and then got in. And that's how I met Luke, who's become a really good friend of mine and really solid group over there. Pops does an awesome job. Met some terrific guys there who I stay in touch with all the time. And then I met a couple guys in the Crusaders or bloggers. So kind of became friendly with them and talked on and off. And then they asked me to be in the group and it was a huge thrill. It's a small group. I was, loved being into it. We do a lot for charities. We do, quite a few barrel picks, obviously not that many this year so far, but it's a great tight knit group. I've met a lot of great people. I met you guys through this whole thing and really more than anything else, I think the charity is huge. I love that, but the relationships mean more to me than all the bourbon that you could possibly get. So there's always other stuff to drink, but there's some really special people in this game. And I'm, thrilled to have met several of them.
Totally agree. Luke, what about you?
Yeah, similar time frames, probably like 2010. I entertain a lot for work. My boss at the time, I operate a fairly sizable entertainment budget. He's like, well, what do you know about wine? And I'm like, yeah, just enough to be dangerous. And he's like, what about whiskey? And I'm like, yeah, a little bit less, but in college, I guess I preferred a Jack and Coke versus a beer. But he's like, well, you need to learn because if you're going to be taking clients out, you need to show them a good time, but stay within budget. So got me curious about why things tasted differently, why one bottle of wine was different than another. And, and after that always led to an after dinner drink. So why one whiskey was different than another and just gravitated more and more to it. So think it was about 2010. There was a group of guys here in Minneapolis that started doing a brown liquor night once a quarter. Started out with a lot of scotches. And, as we would do a deal where everybody brought like a $50 bottle, call it. And we try to drink 6, 8, 10 different types of whiskey that night just to experiment. And I kept gravitating more and more towards bourbon. And it was like 2011 now. And a buddy of mine that's a wine distributor shot me a text and said, hey, if you're interested in trying this Pappy, they got some over at the store. You should go get some. So I shot an email to the group and I said, hey, we're meeting next week. Let's make it a bourbon theme. And by the way, they have this stuff called Pappy. It's supposed to be hard to get. Why don't we all get a bottle and try it? And at the time you could, like legit, we all walked into that store separately over the course of like a week and bought one of every kind of Pappy of all the different varieties. And we cracked them all open at the next gathering. And that kind of set me down the path of going a little crazy with it. Same thing, Bourbon and Banter put out a Help Wanted. I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago. I've never written anything that's been published anywhere ever. And from my job, I'm really not allowed to professionally. So I thought, what the hell? I'll give it a try. So for whatever reason, Pops must have been drunk that night. Picked me as one of the guys that it had to have been. I read some of those early posts and just cringe how terrible they were. But not that the new ones are much better, but they for sure were terrible then. But anyway, Brett and I just started chatting, and I'm in Minneapolis. He's in Omaha. We know some people in common, and I blame him, but he started adding me to the old BSM and some of the Facebook groups, and my desire to learn the hobby just went absolutely insane, and my hooker exploded, and now I have a problem, I guess. I blame Brett for all of it.
Well, you guys want to know a big secret that I don't think people know, but I don't think this guy will ever admit. But I'm the one who added Zeke to his first bourbon group.
I tell people that all the time.
You just took it way farther than I did. I mean, Zeke got into Will It hard.
I tell people my contingency is they can't add you.
I know. That's what you do. It is 100% what Zeke does is he goes like, hey, I'm in this group. It's a really cool private group that does cool picks, but don't add John.
But back to the Bourbon and Banter. Really, thank you guys both. I think that's probably one of John and I's both, early go-tos. We both be in a store looking up stuff or trying to, see a new bottle. Like, all right, where can we find any information about this? Like Bourbon and Banter, odds are the first place we go to look, try and see like, all right, is there a review? Should we buy this, etc. And that definitely kind of got the gears spinning in both of our heads. Like, all right, well, what can we do to contribute here and help people out on, making educated decisions?
Well, I always liked Brett's articles, and Luke, this isn't a shot at you, but
sure it is.
Some of the stuff that Brett did, like that Hirsch piece you did, if you think about it, there are people at Bourbon and Banter that are kind of your regular reporters, and then there's the columnists, and you kind of always took it a step further and really got into the deep backstory, and goes back to what both of you were really saying is, and Luke, I think you got there later on, but it's really about the relationships and the story behind it. That's the thing that I think we find too, is it's really about knowing people like you and knowing all the other people that we know through whiskey. It makes it that much better.
I appreciate you saying that. You're right. I mean, that article came out of a phone call I got from Ed Blagg, called me up and said, you really need to talk to Gordy Hugh, and he's got a good story for you. And, that's how that whole thing happened. And, I've really enjoyed talking with different people, and, I'll sit on the phone for hours with them and I'll tape record it, and it's just a conversation like this, and it goes on and on and on and on. And then there's a story there somewhere. And, that particular one, it was told before. I didn't know that, but it's a great story, and there's tons of them out there. And, I love the people that do. I love what you guys do. I'm just talking to people, getting to know people. This is really what it's all about.
Just like you, we never want it to sound like a manufactured interview. We always want it to sound like it's people sitting around a table, having a good time, sharing pours, and the discussions that we all have in person. That's the funny thing about this whole COVID pandemic lockdown, is that we're used to kind of being in person and having those conversations in person, and we're finding new ways to do that. And I think everybody has been super cool in the bourbon community. I mean, people are finding different ways to reach out and interact with each other. I mean, I get a new challenge request because Zeke doesn't look at our Instagram, but well, you don't look at our messages.
No, that's for you to do.
But we get new challenges, like people challenge us to do push-ups or take a shot and pass it on, whatever it is. I mean, there's different things that are going on that people are still trying to hang out. What have you guys found that people are trying to do where you are?
There's been a proliferation of these kind of online conversations. I've been on a couple in the last week with Karma, one of the groups I'm in, with Zeke, and Brett knows him well as well. Just kind of BS and have a sip, kind of compare notes and do the same things you would do at a bottle share, but do it through the computer, I guess. It's been kind of fun. So people that may not have been able to or wanted to attend something like that in person are actually jumping on. So you're getting to know them a little bit better than you would through just chatting through a private message or through a conversation in a group. So that's been pretty fun. Like Brett said before, it's all about the people. Some of the most interesting people I've met have been since I've gone off the deep end here in the whiskey and bourbon world. So, and some of the weirdest people at the same time. So it's always fun to see them in person, even if it's through a computer screen.
A couple old school cost and ship groups that are still around that are terrific. And that's one of them. There's a couple others. Those are really great. Those really ask you to make a leap of faith. I mean, you're offering stuff, you're giving up profits, you're doing it for the relationship and for the goodwill. And it makes those groups pretty fun.
Well, that's, I literally told somebody like a day or two ago, like there's layers of online secondary world, however you want to look at it. As you get deeper and get into some of those cost and ship groups, you see people like literally you think they were a flipper based on what you see in the main groups or the bigger boards. And then you see the stuff they offer up at cost or less or free. And you're like, oh, I thought that guy was just straight profits. He's actually one of the most generous people, in the game probably. Unless you're in those extra layers, you don't see or know that about a lot of the people, I feel like. Maybe not a lot, but there's a fair amount.
There's a tremendous amount of generosity that goes on in the bourbon community. We've all seen it. Some of the charity stuff that goes on is just crazy. And a lot of even the people that give anonymously, it's amazing.
Brett, the stuff that you and Luke both do through Crusaders, and I've got super involved with Bourbon Charity and just being able to raise money that way. There's awesome things that people are doing, and people don't even realize just the stuff that doesn't even need to be said. It's all the events that keep coming up, and you don't realize how awesome of a tool bourbon can actually be to help other people.
Yeah, and the events are seldom bad. I mean, they're always fun. There's bourbon, there's great people. We've had some pretty magical evenings that come out of nowhere. They're very memorable. People look forward to them, and as a result, a lot of good happens.
Before I forget, on the Bourbon Crusaders note, when you say it's a small group, is that like height-wise? Because I know Hines is in there. I didn't know which direction you were going with that.
That was well done. No, numbers.
Okay.
Numbers. Less than 30.
I tried to get him out, like always. He says he might show up. If it's after 9, he's already in bed. He 86 this again, so sorry.
He didn't want to be within 6 feet of you.
He's great. That guy's a force of nature. I mean, I'll never forget the night I met him. It was unbelievable. He was trying to get a ticket to that Will It to Be Cured event we did a couple years ago. I didn't know him at all. I never talked to him. I started getting private messages from him. Can you get me a ticket for this? Can you get me a ticket for that? And I was like, it's sold out. I'll do what I can. And I didn't know him. And he kept, well, I'd appreciate it. Anything you could do. And finally, somebody had canceled about 3 days before. And I just messaged him. I said, I got you a ticket. Great. And he showed up. He introduced himself. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Walked away, and he stole the show. I mean, he took over the entire room. I feel like he bought everything there. He was buying bottles, and before we could even ring them up, he's ripping the seals off and pouring them out for total strangers. So, I mean, it was unbelievable. We got him in the group like 5 minutes after that, and he's been great ever since.
I help offset the average height at 6'5", so we can balance each other out. But yeah, no, he's awesome. I think we should stop talking about him though, because this is too much praise for him at this point. His condo isn't big enough to handle any more inflation at this point. So
He's the official Matt Damon. You know how like Jimmy Kimmel always says apologies to Matt Damon. We didn't have enough time for you. That is what Mike Hines is for Dad's Drinking Bourbon.
All right, so what's in everybody's glass? Let's at least have a glass check, so to speak. Ooh, Atlas coming in strong.
Well, you gotta. People can't see.
Oh, I forget. Well,
I'm sorry. It's this is the 16-year Willet that we picked. That was a fun day. I almost missed my flight. We picked I think we tried 7 or 8 different barrels, and we picked this one. And custom bottle, and I wrote some of the copy on this label. It's pretty special. This was from the event. There were 5 charity barrels that Culsavine family donated. At the time they were 15, but they all, I think, got bottled at 16. Yeah, I love it.
one of my goals during this work stoppage of travel anyway is to kill off some bottles that need to die. Just some stuff that's got, that last ounce or two in it that have been hanging on to it way too long. And I got some Eagle Rare 17 from 2013, which is the first bottle of BTAC I bought at retail. So I'm killing this one off. And unfortunately, I'm guessing this will be the last Eagle Rare 17 I own at retail and that I end up opening. I'm just going to go drink Brett's from now on.
Zeke, what are you drinking?
Currently, I've got Four Roses. Our buddy Alex left here with us. This is an OBSQ 9-year, 9-month from JE.
Is that one you're going to share with me or no?
We would have shared it with you if you'd have shared yourself with us when he was in town.
Well, I was on quarantine. Just
you got
saying.
Your story, I got mine, buds.
Oh, no flippers. Brett is going back to that OWA no flippers.
Yeah, what did that take? Third that year that you guys did those?
He's still bitter about that.
It's funny, and I think we can loop that in the conversation later on some blinds and whatnot. Honestly, I think that'll tie in well.
I'm drinking 2019 George C. Stagg because Zeke wanted me to drink something good.
I didn't persuade you.
I want to go back to how you say there's the annals of the secondary world. And let's just talk about how Brett is like the king of posting stuff that he's already had a sip of and then just being like, hey, let me sell this off now.
It works.
I've purchased from him.
Have you?
Yeah. I got I got a Michter's toasted rye from you. Maybe something else.
You know what? If you like it, I keep them in good shape.
No, I messaged you and I laughed. I'm like, clearly you didn't like it. I did. There's not even an ounce coming out of this. I feel good here.
You know what? It's a good option. If you can take good care of it and somebody likes it and they want to drink it, it works.
I'm 100% on that. For some of those things, when you take a sip and you're like, this is not my jam, but somebody else might like it, there's a lot of good options there to actually get that out. And that's a part of secondary. I mean, I brought it up at first to give you shit, but
plus it's the easiest way to post a review without saying any words.
True story.
I right about this in Bourbon and Banter, but I did see him put the bottle on.
Yeah, now that's a good segue into this one. Let's talk about this because you guys hated this, right?
You're talking about the Parker's Heritage Rye, and we didn't say we hated it. We just said that we liked the Cornerstone a little bit more. I think the price of the Parkers was higher than the Wild Turkey Cornerstone.
You guys had it in a blind with some other stuff. And I guess I'll put as a preface to that, we haven't had it in a blind, which is probably our own fault. But having it just on its own, at least for me, I definitely thought it just came up short. It could have been just all the hype that Heaven Hill put around it, and the alligator char and this and that, and showing pictures of these just cooked barrels, and it just didn't have that kind of depth to it to me at all. I mean, it could have been the buildup. We all know that exists, and that's the purpose of the blind. But having it raw, so to speak, it just didn't hit hard enough to amount to what I thought was going to be coming.
Could also be the bottle had been open for a while, right, Luke? I mean, you'd opened it a while ago.
Yeah, I forget when that got released. Was that fall last year or late summer? I forget when that came out, but I cracked it shortly thereafter. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I thought it was better than Cornerstone or not at the time, but kind of set it aside, and I was making a business trip through Omaha.
It wasn't it was right before the lockdown.
Yeah, right before the lockdown. I'm like, hey, why don't we do this? I'll bring 3 bourbons and 3 ryes blind in sample bottles. You pour some off as well and set them there, and we'll go through and taste them. And I retried it recently, and I was like, wow, this is not what I remember tasting the first time. So I threw it in there because a lot of people either hated it, or I think Zeke probably put it the better way. It's hate's not the right word, but it didn't live up to the hype. And I think part of it is with Parker, you have this kind of reverence towards it in terms of some of the best whiskeys I've ever had were some of the early Parker's releases. I mean, they just had some grand slam home runs early on, and recently the last 3 or 4 just haven't been there. The Curacao I thought was terrible. It's just not my flavor style at all. I think there's just been kind of they've been on a downswing, I guess is the way to put it lately. And so going back and giving it another try, it just completely changed my mind on it.
After that night, I ran out and got a couple of these. And when I first opened it, it was different than when I had tried it in the blind. I mean, the finish was a little more, I guess, is harsh, but not in a bad way. It was, you tasted a lot of that char, and it was less, I don't know, it was less enjoyable, but as I worked through the bottle a little bit, it's gotten better and better. I mean, it's closer to what I remember it as.
You must have a better shopping situation there than we do here in Nashville. If you can just run out and grab a couple.
Well, I didn't get them at the store.
I feel like the upfront of it was, sweet and nice, and then it just disappeared. And, like you mentioned at the finish, that's where I really thought that char would shine through and give a lingering flavor. And just, at least when we tried it, just never got it. That's why I was like, Did you ever go 50-50 with the Cornerstone and the PHC? John and I, we don't agree too much. But those two 50-50, because when we tried them, we were both like, all right, hold on. One has a front, one has a back. All right. I thought it definitely was better than either one.
Brett, I don't think you were with on Bourbon and Banter did a trip to Kentucky a couple of years ago. It had to have been early 2018. We picked some barrels. It was right after the Al Young 50th came out, and that year's small batch limited edition. And we're sitting in the tasting room there. Dan Gardner was kind of walking us through the tasting. I had just written a review for Al Young. I love Al Young as a person. He's just an amazing person, but I didn't love that release.
How did you not love Al Young?
I didn't either. I was disappointed.
It's not bad whiskey. I just didn't think it was like spectacular. People love it. It just wasn't my favorite Four Roses, and I'm a huge Four Roses guy. I have way more Four Roses than my wife prefers to have in my house right now. Trust me, I have that conversation about once a quarter about what's going on there. So anyway, we got done. We walked through this tasting, took the Al Young in the small batch limited edition. Same thing you did, Zeke. Boom, put them together, and it was magic. It took the parts of the Al Young I didn't like, got covered up by the magic of the 2017 release. And I suggested Dan Gardner try it, and he was in agreement. We said, don't tell anybody. We're just going to be making our own private blends now.
Well, the thing about Al Young for me, and Zeke and I both talked about this, the thing that I liked about it is more that it just changed every 15 minutes. I was like, I'm getting this right now, and then I'm getting this something. There are parts of this that I completely love, but I just loved how much it changed.
I mean, it took a good hour for me in the glass to when I thought, like, all right, now I'm finally getting it. Like, that's one of the only release, like distillery release I've ever gone to. Got up early, had a work meeting, picked up a guy from the boards in Bowling Green, like we'd never met. I was like, all right, I'll pick you up. We'll ride up together. So we're shooting the shit, get up there, hang out, go to the release, get back home, sitting out on the deck, like pouring the glass and like sipping a little bit. Like, well, not getting too much here. So, let it sit, goof off, do whatever. You got a phone, you can waste time easily. An hour in, I'm just like, this is really just a buku of flavor that's all over the place. But it took that long because it's literally up to that, I'm like, not doing these releases anymore. This is a waste of my damn day.
We're making Luke drink it again. He just went and pulled it from the cabinet.
See, when you can crack the 19 small batch and it's incredible from the first sip, who has the kind of time to wait an hour to hope something gets better?
The 19 was freaking amazing.
Running around downstairs, that upstairs roof deck looks good.
Yeah, I'll give this another try.
How good was that 19? That's all I want to know.
It's amazing. The 17 was good too. The 19, man, that is spectacular.
Yeah, I just wish John would have gotten a bottle. Somehow he missed out. I don't know.
I got a bottle.
So anyone chasing the older MGP, man, this 7-year, this 21 Kings pick there was a 7-year. What was the other one? There was an older one that
right here.
Yeah, this kills that.
I don't know if it kills, but it's spectacular for what it is. I mean, if you drink them side by side, to me, what's interesting is just seeing it's the same mash bill, it's the same MGP style, and seeing, and Smoke Wagon, I think, does a really interesting thing where they don't rotate the barrels. So just kind of seeing what age does directly to those barrels. So that extra 4 years, it's 7 years, 11 months. It's like a couple weeks shy of 8 years old when you're drinking. I think it's got a ton of rye spice on it. It's like young and lively. It just kind of pops in your mouth. And I think the 12-year has to me, it's just the quintessential 12-year-old MGP. It's mellow. It's got a long finish. And I think it's really fun trying those side by side and just seeing what that 4 years in a barrel does to the same distillate, basically.
You drink a 7-year bourbon, right? And it's this good. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to accept when people say, "Oh, wait till it gets older about something. Oh, give it a couple more years. It's not ready yet." I hear that and I taste this and I go, I don't need to wait anymore for that.
Well, I'll say that at 2 years, but I'm not going to say that at 7 years. If a bourbon is good at 7 years, it's good at 7 years.
But outside of age, we won't go in the rabbit hole. Just a simple yes or no. Do you think MGP has changed from what it was? And by was, I would mean like the original Smooth Ambler picks and, blends and whatnot, compared to what's coming out now.
Now, Zeke and I had this conversation once. The answer is maybe. Well, I mean, this is MGP, right? And it's as good as anything that I've had from the older stuff.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, maybe it's changed. I mean, I've heard they've changed some things over the past few years. I mean, I wrote an article about it. I've tried to kind of figure out why there's such a premium on the older stuff. Myself, I think a good bottle of MGP is a good bottle of MGP, whether I got it 5 years ago or today.
The funny thing is, I know Luke was saying, how the hell are you guys going to follow Greg Metz? But the conversation I had last week with Greg put out in a podcast, I mean, that run that Zeke talks about, the Smooth Ambler, the Bellmead, the Blom, everything that everybody was going for that September to November of 2006, it wasn't even LDI. It wasn't even MGP. It was still Pernod Ricard. It's not MGP.
I mean, I'm just saying, without even tasting it, there's a smell that comes off of those earlier runs that just nothing about it resonates with even some of the older current stuff. I mean, I remember like literally when John and I first started doing this, we got in like Prov's 12-year Boone pick and we popped it together, here at the house. And literally as soon as the cork came out, I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I remember from the original Smooth Ambler picks. Like it was unique without describing it. It was just amazing. It had its own smell that stuff now just doesn't get there. Even some like the Backbone, other people that have, 10 or 11 year juice now, it doesn't give off anything about the, I guess, same presence to me.
See, we used to do, when I was in Karma a long time ago, we had a lot of that Smooth Ambler picks they were going, everyone was trading them around they were all over. And I remember trying a bunch of them and they were hit or miss. I mean, some of them were fantastic and some of them from that era weren't that good. So maybe in my mind, it was always, it was a crapshoot. Kind of like some of the Source Willet ones. I mean, some are incredible, right? And some of them are average. They're all good, but unless you taste them, you don't know what you like.
Oh, some are Brown Foreman and some are Heaven Hill.
Yeah, I think the early Smooth Ambler stuff is pretty feast or famine. It's either just meh at best or just average to, the really good ones are spectacular. And I don't think that's changed at all with MGP. It's like, they make some great stuff. They've been making great whiskey for many, many decades. When you get the good one, it. To your point, Zeke, about you pull that cork or you pop that barrel and you're like, yep, that's the MGP I love. If that doesn't hit you right away, then move on. I think it's instantaneous almost.
As soon as you smell it, like, yep, that's going to be a good one. I'll move ahead.
So thinking about that, I mean, not just to have a conversation about MGP, but you guys are very close to it. What gets you excited about whiskey besides the relationships?
Well, it's all changing now. One of the things that I've gotten most excited about, I'll show you. I went to meet a friend of mine. His name's Bert Brown. Kansas City was in town. And I went over to meet him. and great guys, by the way. And he poured this for me. This is Evan Williams 23 year. And I'd never had it. Evan Williams, I've tried in the past. It never did anything for me. I've seen this at the gift shop in the past. And I said, oh, that's nice. He said, here, you got to try this. I was like, okay, fine. And it blew me away. I mean, 23 year, 107 proof. And it's amazing. I mean, amazing. And so then he told me, okay, well, don't tell anyone about this. Now I can. He'd probably kill me otherwise, because the pre-fire stuff's gone now. And last year was the last year. So I got enough of these now where I'm happy to talk about it. But I mean, like that, like when I see what people pay for Pappy, and then this was, I mean, it wasn't cheap, but $350 at the gift shop for all of last year. This is one of the best things I've had. Anyone who comes over here wants this. And that gets me excited when I discover something like that I'd never even heard of.
On the question of pre-fire, and I know John's answer, so I'll leave this with you two.
Well, it changes.
Is there truly a difference in pre-fire versus post?
I'll let you know when I try this post-fire. But because we've had barrels, Luke, we've done a million picks at Heaven Hill. I mean, some of those Elijah Craig, the Deatsville picks, obviously, some of those great ones they're unbelievable. So I don't know what they would have tasted like pre-fire, but you can get some great barrels there. Now they have stuff there that we wouldn't take at all, but the Elijah Craigs, I think they do a great job there. I've never picked an Evan Williams barrel, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer both questions. I mean, to me, what I get excited about lately, last call it year and a half, 2 years, I've just been on a huge Dusty kick. I want to try everything that was made a long time ago, whether it's pre-fire or pre-World War II or even pre-Prohibition. I've been fortunate to find a bunch of stuff. I've spent more time than is healthy rummaging through old people's basements all over southern Minnesota, and I've done well. I'm too cheap to go pay full secondary for it, so I guess I got to dig through some musty basements. But I found almost an entire set of Old Crow Chessmen. Brett's had a few of. So I've had good luck with it, and I've found some pretty spectacular whiskey. But to the point about the pre-fire, I think there is a difference. I've tried a ton of Elijah Craig. I'm a big fan. At the Crusaders event in November, we did that the 15-year 107 proof virgin bourbon. That was the export. I think the secondary on that stuff is like $300, which is insanely cheap for how good that is. That was, in my opinion, we had a table full of home runs, and that was amongst the best things we drank that night.
Well, I just like to poke fun at Zeke, and I like to rile him up because I say the still is the same. Most of the things are the same, but there are so many variables. I'm taking a step back because we actually have people here that mean a damn. I'm gonna actually tell the truth for once. There is a big difference because like the way the ricks were before the fire, it's now different. There's so many variables that go along besides the still.
The other thing that I think that doesn't get enough attention is the age of the trees that are used for the barrels. Yep. I think over time, they're not using trees that are nearly as old as they used to be. And I think that makes a humongous, I think the aging process is where all the flavor comes from. And I don't think the barrels are the same as they used to be.
No, and I think that's across the board. That's not just at Heaven Hill. That's everywhere.
Right. 100%. Can we go ahead and make a declaration for the entire bourbon world tonight? I mean, if we're going to do something important, let's do it. You see this occasionally on the boards, and I don't want to make fun of people that are newer to the hobby. I want to encourage people to come in and learn and have fun with it. But you see somebody occasionally that posts a bottle on the secondary market of like something from like 2012, and they call it Dusty. The last year to be called a Dusty should be 1992. And there's some important things that happened that year. One, Stitzel-Weller disappeared. That's a big one. Wild Turkey changed the barrel entry proof. National Distillers was bought by Jim Beam. So there were a bunch of very important changes in 1992 that impacted the flavors of all these different whiskeys. And then you have the fire in 1996. So that was close enough where it can tie into it. So if you're going to call something Dusty today, I think it has to be 1992. And we're only 2 years away from it being 30 years old since it was bottled. Can I get an amen or a hear from you guys? And let's call it 1992.
I just feel bad for anybody born that year. Whiskey went to shit.
Congratulations, you were born. Whiskey now sucks.
Well, you were born in 92? Perfect. I mean,
no.
Came into this world. If there's ever a sign that that's the time, that's it.
I was born in 82, thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right.
You're making a compelling case. Brett, do you agree? I mean, you graduated law school.
That's all right.
So, counselor, give me your counter argument.
I understand exactly what he's saying. I think that you kind of have to start when people started really getting into bourbon, I think, because you had a glut until then, really. So I would extend it a few years. I mean, I think 96, 97, I think that stuff is pretty good. I do think
it's good, but is it dusty?
I mean, some of the Weller stuff, I think you could argue are. I mean, I've had some late 90s Weller that's pretty tasty versus today.
Well, no, but it's tasty, but does it have enough dust on it?
The turkey stuff turned after about 94. I think it changed after about 94.
I'd always heard that. I think it was 97. I'll check when I'm back home. But after we did our JD pick, we were drinking later that night, and a guy cracked a 97 split label, 12-year, and literally, like, it was good. I was surprised how good it was, and so was the whole room. We passed the bottle around about 10 people, and we're like, I would actually probably put this on the CGF level. Like, it was there. Now, I always heard mixed reviews on splits. Just, I'm sure it's, various batches and blends, and obviously nature's involved there. But the one the guy cracked, it was good. Jesus.
Dollar for dollar, the best one there is that National Distillers Old Granddad 114s. I think you're not going to beat that for the money. It's funny. I had this conversation literally yesterday with somebody who was asking me if the stuff that's out today will be considered dusty in 20 years. And I was like, no. It's a good conversation. I don't know what the answer would be.
Brett, I poured one just for you right now.
Hey, that's funny. I got one of those too. This one's different.
I'm pouring a Deatsville Bourbon Crusaders 11-year-old. I know there's one that you said is better than the others.
No, that one right there is a really good one. There was the original one, which is before I got in the group. There were two picks. There was one from Bardstown and one from Deatsville. And I think originally the Bardstown was the favorite, and that turned fast. And so Deatsville blew up, and then that one came out, and there was a 10-year with that. I like the one that you have right there a lot. And there's a new one coming too, any day now, whenever this thing gets cleared up. So,
well, hopefully Zeke and I can each find a bottle that fell off the truck.
Yeah, we'll get you one.
Yeah, he means me. Sorry, John.
Asshole.
I was going to send you guys another, the Jack's OWA, but you don't need this because it finished third. So you got enough of the first two.
Well, apparently Edwards is Bogart and had two of them. I thought it was one.
I was impressed that you pulled that out.
Hey.
He has never revealed that to me, which speaks a lot for this relationship right now.
Well, you don't reveal a lot to me.
I do. It's just after the fact.
Yeah, so this is after the fact. The fact that I have a second one is after the fact.
What do you like these Elijah Craig? Some of them are really, I know they're low proof, but man, they're good.
No, and somebody was talking about that. It's funny. I put it in the Dad's Drinking Bourbon group today. I said, what's an unpopular opinion that you hold to be true? Somebody was saying that bourbon doesn't always have to be high proof, and I think there's a lot of people right now that chase a higher proof. There's some great bourbon that is 90 proof or 94 proof, like an Elijah Craig.
What's the Chessman's 86?
86. Yeah. And I mean, those Old Taylor National Distillers, those are great whiskeys, and they're in the 80s.
That was one of my first Dusties, was the 1992 National Distillers, the 6-year 86 proof. Brought it to a buddy's place. We drank some Pappy and a bunch of other random stuff, and that one kind of stole the show. And that was about maybe two and a half years ago, and it brought me down the very dangerous, slippery path of wanting to try every other Dusty that was ever made at that point. So that was my first of many. Yeah.
He's showing an old wild turkey.
Old 92. Back when it was probably the old entry proof, different game. But I mean, at least for me, my favorite, it's still a cheap bottle when you see it. I don't see them much. The old Dance, when they were pre-fire, bottled and bond, 100 proof. I've got a plastic bottle of that. And it's literally one of my favorite pours. It just captures everything I love out of pre-fire. And it's just where my jam is.
You used to be able to find those in the secondary for the 1.75s were like $150, and the plastic was like disformed and disfigured on it.
It would look somebody like a fat person just squashed it. I mean, it was warped.
So it's like I squashed it.
Under a couch.
I was being nice, John. Thank you.
It's not often.
I know. That's your one for the night.
That's a good topic. What are your unpopular opinions?
You like ETL.
Don't keep punting here. You posted this question.
I'm just saying.
I like Elmer. Elmer won a blind tasting we did here over a bunch of other. I mean, it's you like it or you don't, but it's you can't argue it's not good.
Well, it's all about what you put it with, too. I had a Japanese whiskey, a Scotch, and something else.
I mean, I don't know.
That's setting it up for success right there.
I'm sure I can't think of one off the top of my head.
I don't think this is very controversial or unpopular amongst whiskey nerds like us, but most special releases these days aren't that special.
That's a fair point. I mean, if I was going to go to something, I would say Pappy is overrated. Pappy's never done anything for me.
I like him.
I think it's mostly older stuff, or if you randomly catch one of the single barrels that Julian's able to sneak out the side door, and you happen to know somebody that gets one of those. Like, that's some good juice.
Mm-hmm.
A guy brought one of those last year to Mike's birthday, and we all were like, this is going to be, hype, yada, yada. This is a Julian picked 15-year single barrel, et cetera. Like, it's still Buffalo Trace juice, whatever. And then, like, literally everybody at the table was like a slow rumble, like, all right, who's going to be the first one? But, like, this is good. This is really good. It was not like a rock glass. You didn't even knows it, but just the flavor. I mean, it really was legit. And we're all like, all right, clearly they have some good juice. They just don't share it very much.
Well, when you're making it for the masses in terms of proof and batching, you're going to take all that nuance out.
I'll give you one. McKenna's terrible.
When it comes to those awards, especially McKenna's a single barrel, and you're submitting the best single barrel you can. I mean, Zeke and I have won awards. That enough should show you. I'm just saying that.
You guys deserve yours.
No, I'm just saying that when it comes to it at the end of the day.
Yeah, this one's not going to help you.
Oh, it's great. But pay the money to submit the whiskey for the award. You're going to win something at that point. And then McKenna is a single barrel. They're submitting the best single barrel that they possibly can. It doesn't mean that every single McKenna is going to be that good.
Yep.
Like, I like E.H. Taylor small batch more than I like the E.H. Taylor single barrel.
All day. To your question, our buddy Paul, he's the only one I think really comprehended and replied intelligently about it, saying simply that you can't have the notion every pick is better than the normal shelf offering. At least probably half the time, they might be turds compared to it.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually agree with that more times than I would disagree. And my reply to somebody that said, well, what do you mean? I said, look at Weller Foolproof. The only shelf offering they put out compared to the 12 or so picks I've had, it beat easily. I mean, it wasn't even a question in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So go to that point, it's like, all right, well, maybe there's a reason they small batch after all. Link back to Four Roses, Yellow Label even. They're just dumping random blends and ages, and it's still a good product, and Lord knows what it would be at cash strength. I mean, sheesh.
They're dumping some pretty old barrels in there sometimes too.
Oh, the max profits lost.
And they had like 17, 18. We know that. I mean, 16, 17, 18-year-old barrels being dumped in Yellow Label.
Yeah.
I just had a call today with a client, and typical whiskey drinker, not a nerd like us, just has a pour when he comes home, but doesn't really spend time. He doesn't follow the blogs, or unfortunately for you all, listen to podcasts, but he's like, what should I be drinking? And my first response 9 times out of 10 is buy a bottle of Four Roses small batch. There's a blend of 6 recipes in there. It's got a little proof. It's got some nuance to it. And for $40, it's pretty hard to beat.
We've been going for a very long time. I just have to ask you, before we end this, have you watched Tiger King on Netflix or no?
Not yet. I just read about it the other day, though. We just finished Hunters. I ran through that whole series. That was good.
What's the number one thing you guys think people should be watching while you're stuck in the house?
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I love that.
That's a tough answer to follow up because that's spectacular.
Best episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm ever, Palestinian chicken.
I like Crazy Eyes Killer myself.
Or vehicular, that's a great one too.
I don't remember the name of the episode where he hired help to get into the carpool lane to get to the baseball game. That was one of my all-time favorites.
I love that show.
This is a good season too.
It is.
It has been very, very good.
Zeke?
Anything, Zeke?
I've never watched a single episode.
Of anything?
Curb Your Enthusiasm. Jesus.
But what are you watching while you're stuck in the house?
I really like Curse of Oak Island a lot. Black Monday just started back up. And other than that, I mean, honestly, I just try and catch up on shit. I don't know. I let SportsCenter play in the background.
There's no sports right now. What the hell are you watching?
Yeah, I haven't watched it. What's on there?
I like background noise. I don't like quietness. It's a weird thing. I was actually going to ask you to at least to explain the blind for the PHC1 because I still want to hear and let people know what y'all claimed it beat out.
All right. There was no claiming. I have it.
Well, John and I both just had pours of the Cornerstone rye, which we both said we thought bested it handily.
The first time I had the Cornerstone, the first couple times, I thought it was good. I liked it. I liked it more when it was, it was originally, I was told by a very reliable source that you both know, that it was originally supposed to be the return of the Christmas rye, which I was pretty excited about. And that whole thing got blown up. And I think the Cornerstone was good. I think when you put it against a bunch of other things, it just doesn't have the power to, it fades. I mean, it doesn't stand out. It's not bad. Let me just, you want me to go through what we tasted?
Yeah, go ahead.
Luke came over. The rules were we each did 3 bourbon, 3 rye from our own collection. No crap allowed. We know what that means.
No whammies.
So, right. And so we didn't. So all you knew were it was 3 bourbon and 3 rye. So bourbons were the Taylor Amaranth, 2013 Stag, which won another the legendary blind tasting a few years ago. 68 Old Forester 86 proof. Those were the 3 bourbon. And then the ryes that I poured. Bavix, Whistle Pig 13 year, the pig casserole. It was an MGP. I think he blended 2 barrels together. A 2015 Van Winkle rye and the Cornerstone. So that was what I poured for Luke. In that grouping, the Amaranth did pretty good, which I was surprised. The 13 Stag did really good, which I'm not surprised. And the Cornerstone he did not like.
That was the worst of the 6. I mean, we knew the bourbons and ryes. We weren't blind on that. I did not like it. And the first 2 or 3 times I tried Cornerstone, I liked it. But when it was poured in that lineup and in that setting, it fell completely flat to me. And I didn't like it. And I love turkey. I'm a huge Dusty Turkey guy. And the Russell's Reserve Rye, especially the picks from 3-4 years ago, are some of the biggest sleepers out there, in my opinion. So I was shocked to find out that's what that was.
So Luke's side, the bourbons were Blanton straight from the barrel, which is 138 proof, 15 Stag, Booker's 30th. Those were the 3 bourbons. And then the ryes were Jimmy Mize. It was an MGP, right? Was it a Blom? I don't know what. Yeah,
it's a Blom Brothers El Magico.
The Parker's Heavy Char rye. And then a 16 Handy. But what we figured out was, and I learned this a couple of years ago, Handy's my favorite rye. When you get to about a quarter left in the bottle, it's toast. I mean, if you don't finish it, it goes bad. And this was, I couldn't even tell you what it was. It was so bad.
I'll at least touch on it because it's not as high as it was on secondary, but the Amaranth, what notes do you have or what do you remember? Like, I remember this random note that I got from it when I tasted it, and it's off the wall, but I'll let y'all go first.
So the first time I had it was actually at Heinz Place there in Nashville. And I had a really tiny sample. I think we had 11 Willets already at that point. So probably wasn't the perfect setting for it where I had been set up poorly. But I remember drinking it. He poured it in my glass, didn't tell me anything, said, "What do you think?" And I go, "This isn't good." And he goes, "That's the Amaranth." And I was like, "Good, now I don't have to chase it." I watched it go to $900 on the secondary, and I laughed at people. And then when Brett poured it a few weeks ago, it caught me off guard completely. I was like, wow, this is interesting. It had a weird, like Dr. Pepperish flavor to it that I just had not gotten in something in a while. So I had to eat my words on that one and go back and say that I actually liked it.
I didn't like it. I thought it was I thought it was thin. I thought it was off. I went back and had the 4 grain, the seasoned wood. I mean, to me, it wasn't even close.
At least for me, when I had it, it was thin, but it had this like weird grape jelly flavor to it. I mean, it was a different fruit kind of aspect I've ever had. And everybody in the room was kind of the same page. And it was just weird. We're like, I don't know. Like it doesn't taste like bourbon.
No.
Necessarily tastes bad.
It's pigweed.
But if you tell somebody you're drinking bourbon and you pour them that, inherently they're just not going to like it. You know, like it just doesn't match any profile you would expect for
I'm not going to go chase a bottle. I'm certainly not going to go pay. I don't even know what the secondary is on it now, but it was interesting to try it later. Again, the second time blind and have a very different opinion on it, and a pretty crazy lineup of good stuff. Because, like I said, we agreed that we weren't going to do any whammies. As Brett's out there uncovering, stories about Hirsch Gold Wax back in the day, I'm writing Lusty Claw reviews. So,
dude, can I just say how much of a disappointment the bottle of Lusty Claw is one of my favorite bottles that is out there, and then you actually drink it and you're like, man,
why don't you just empty one out and pour something good into it?
That's what you should do. You should treat it like a decanter.
Any other standouts from this blind you guys did, other than at least John and I still aren't sure how the PH2 won?
No, it's just, to me and Brett and I talked about it that night. Blinding is so interesting because you're going to embarrass yourself and you're going to say something really stupid, because you're going to have an opinion on something that 100% contradicts something you already said publicly before.
100%.
And the 4 of us have all drank our fair share of whiskey. We're pretty experienced dudes. You're going to drink it and you're going to say, this is for sure X. And then you're going to find out what it really was and you're going to look silly. And to me, that's just the best part of it. You're going to learn, and you're going to try something interesting. And to me, that's the best way to do it.
That's why a lot of people don't drink blind. And the funny thing is that Zeke and I record it half the time. I mean, I remember a blind we did a couple weeks ago, and there was a will at Family Estate that, I ranked 3rd out of 4. And the 4th was a bottle of 4 Roses that we both really liked the first time we had it. There are things that show up in different places depending on the blind that you have and depending on the other whiskeys that are there. I think it's all a way to learn your palate and learn what you like and what you don't like, and gotta do it blind.
That's kind of why I laughed. So this most recent pour I've got was the Rare Bird.
I got that
pick from last year, the 8101. I still think they've killed it with this pick. Like, it's a great pick barrel. I mean, I
have you ever tried that with the 2002?
Not together, and based on the current status of this bottle, it's not going to be possible. But same scenario, John and I both had it independently, could care less literally of how much we loved it or didn't. Both thought, man, this is a really outstanding turkey pick. And then a buddy of ours, Bryant, sent us a blind, and admittedly he likes to trip us up more than most. I know I ranked it 3rd. I think you were 3rd or 4th.
I think I was 2nd with it.
Maybe. Okay. But I mean, either way, neither one of us in the blind thought it was as standout as we did, alone. And again, it's just he and I drinking. Like, it's not recorded. Nobody's ever going to know. It's just he and I, like, what do you think? Like, man, it's phenomenal. But then, the blind shows up and like, well, oh, interesting.
The sticker adds a lot.
I mean, they do. And my only note about stickers that I'll always say is,
unless they're hologram, they ain't shit.
John's words, not mine, and I made it. But no, like, stickers make everything relatable. Like, hey, did you have JoJo's Weller? I don't know who JoJo is. I don't care. What was the sticker? Oh, it was a camel on it. Okay, yeah, I tasted that one. I know what it was. Like, it just makes everything more relatable and memorable. And at least to that degree, I will always support stickers as long as they're unique.
That's fair.
I don't know, guys. We've been talking for a long time. It's probably time we let you go to bed. Let's do this again. It's been awesome to have you on. Luke, Brett, thank you so much.
It's been fun. Thank you.
Hey, final question. So in all this mess, what has been your biggest disappointment that you could not find when you got to the grocery?
frozen vegetables.
Like you go to the grocery now. I mean, obviously toilet paper and other stuff's picked over.
No, I got that stuff.
Like,
Frozen vegetables is key.
That you really wanted.
Rye bread? That pissed me off.
There you go.
Chicken tenders. My kids eat them all the time, and we got an air fryer, and it's kind of the easy go-to when they won't eat anything else. And well, I went to grab some the other day, and there was nothing on the shelf, no chicken tenders. So I guess that's a cop-out answer, but I'll go with that.
Luke, you can do that on your own. The key is you have one hand that sticks to the wet part of the process of battering and one hand that sticks to the dry part. Don't switch them.
I cook. I got a big green egg, and I love to barbecue. So, but my kids won't eat that stuff. So I'm fine for me. But the fights of feeding my kids are bigger. So anything I can do to make this part easier is good for everybody.
All right. So Brett, Luke, where can the folks find you?
At Brett Atlas, pretty much everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Bourbon Banter. We write, we show up, we have fun.
Luke concurs.
That damn Minnesota weather.
He's frozen.
He is frozen right now.
Literally.
He really is. You can find us on Facebook at Dad's Drinking Bourbon, Twitter at Bourbon Dads, Instagram at Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Find us wherever you download your podcasts. Zeke, where else can the folks find us?
I just want to say cheers to both these guys. Bourbon and Banter from the first places we got into. We're looking at reviews and honestly inspired us to do where we are now. So thank you both for all that you've done and for a wonderful friendship.
No, thanks for having us and thanks for everything you guys do. It's fun.
Thank you both.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you both.
Cheers.
Cheers.
You too.
Zeke, where else can the folks find us?
Nashville, Tennessee. Hopefully this quarantine shit ends soon. Thank you. Ciao.